Yes.
Right. I think we need to change strong to dope, right? Because we're of a certain age. So we know dope, but the kids still use it. The kids still use dope. But we understand the difference. Like I can do cool things, I can do amazing things, but strong implies that I don't need help from anyone, including my sisters. Right. And that becomes problematic. So the people who are, like you said, crumbling all the time are the people who get the most support. And they are the people who probably need it a little less because everybody's helping. Right. And then we also have to remember that tears are also a tool that people use to be manipulative. So I am mindful of people who cry like this, especially when there are people who do that when there's conflict, because that's a way to take away from the issue at hand and now go to soothing them and making them feel better. And then what do we do naturally? People are inclined to edit everything else that's said so it will not elicit this tearful response. But when people cry, I say, cry through it. Let's go. We're still talking. I'm not easing up.
Let me get a pillow so I can just relax. I'm in group therapy. Hello and welcome to the Bold Black Girls podcast. I'm Aries.
And I'm Kim.
And we have a special guest. All our guests are special, but
they really are.
We have a special guest
we
today.
Have special people.
Yes, Miss Tia Brown, who is amazing. I met Tia through Sisters in Sales, which we have had the president of Sisters in Sales also on the podcast as well. But she was so gracious as to doing a group therapy session for some of the ladies from Sisters in Sales. And so I got to experience her style, which I was like, I love her. Like, girl, yes. So we have been connected. And so I just am so glad we were able to have you on because I can't wait to hop into these topics with you. So thank you and welcome to the podcast, Tia.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to talk to your audience and really dig in. So for those who don't know, I am a licensed therapist and a life coach. They work in tandem. And we're here to have a great candid conversation. So let's get at it.
Yes. So I was all excited and bragging about group therapy
every week
with Kim.
Every week.
Kim has been, she's done some group therapy as well with her through her work. And so it is a dynamic. It's a dynamic that is very different. It's a different dynamic. So I've done the one-on-one therapy and all that, but there is something different to the group therapy aspects where you hear other people talking and you hear, it's a safe space and you can, talk through things with other people and there might be other advice that other people have. But what have you seen as far as the benefits of people, looking into group therapy, maybe versus or in addition to individual therapy?
Boom. And that's what I think is most important. It's in addition to, right? So group therapy is a great place to work out an ongoing issue that you've already dug into, with a regular therapist. So you have some good coping skills, you have some insight, and now you're looking for a place to have support, share stories, realize that you aren't crazy as you keep dealing with different triggers, realize that this is normal, bounce ideas back, and really build community. Right. So I don't say you should do group therapy instead. I think it's in addition to.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like that.
I like it because I started doing individual therapy. And although I did group therapy at my job, that was with my colleagues. So I probably was a little bit reserved and I would be with people that I don't typically work with. So I do have a question about group therapy. When or what types of group therapies would people typically kind of jump into or figure out, okay, you know what, I have this particular issue. Maybe I should seek out group therapy as well. What are some just examples?
So you can have group therapy about any issue, right? So it's really just around an ongoing theme. So it could be, women dealing with relationships. It can be people dealing with losing a parent. It could be teenagers trying to navigate high school, right? So the goal is just to get people together who are sharing a common experience. But guess what? All of our identities shape how we go at an issue, right? So even if it's all Black women, or even if it's all teenagers, you may be a certain age, you may be from a certain neighborhood, you may have had one parent, two parents, been with all your grandparents. All of these things shape it. You may be poor, you may be rich, right? But we have this commonality of like, we're dealing with this issue. So how do all of these things provide insight? How do they shape our coping skills? How do they teach us how to navigate? And that's what group therapy does. It lets you know you're not alone. You can make it through. Other people are going through this, because when we're in therapy by ourselves, we think, what? We're crazy.
Yes.
Yes.
And or we're mad at our therapist for pushing us. Right?
Yes.
A little bit
honest. Yeah.
Right. So group therapy kind of is a great equalizer. It normalizes the experiences, and then it gives you ongoing support, because we know that issues are not finite. Right. So you may deal with a divorce, but then guess what? You have to deal with life after dealing with the crisis moment of getting settled into your new lifestyle, managing your kids, or managing being single. But then there's still other issues that come up. And that's what group therapy is for. It's a place to provide support, to normalize issues, and then to build community.
I love it.
I like that too. My dad, he does this, they call it a healing circle, where they it's mothers who have lost their children to like violence or gun violence and things like that. And it's always super powerful when I hear, stories around that, because they have someone there that does therapy. They have like, someone, a spiritual guide, there, and just like that community gets built again, where people can support each other in a hard time,
and I love the fact that it's multidisciplinary, right? So yeah. I worked at a hospital at one point, and I worked on a multidisciplinary team for people who had severe mental illness. So you're getting the nurse, you're getting the therapist, you're getting the life coach, you're getting all of these different people to pour into you. So you don't have to try to figure out anything without having support, right? Especially in the beginning of an issue, or if there's an ongoing crisis that, things are going to keep popping up. It's easy to be overwhelmed. So I love that.
Easy.
And that's the same thing as like when families go to therapy together, right? Would that be considered
group therapy?
If like a family decides like we got some issues and we all need to come, is that the same thing, or is that something different?
It's not the same. Family therapy or couples therapy has a different dynamic, because you're going into the same household. While you all have different identities, you're dealing with core issues and you're interacting in a different way. At the end of group therapy, you're going home. And you're
interacting with those people.
Right. At the end of family therapy, you got to look the person in the face and be like, so what you saying?
Right. Oh, you got issues with the way I sell you.
or there's a different level of accountability, because you have a different type of relationship where you are depending on each other in a different way. So it's valuable. I'm a proponent of family therapy as well. All therapies. Sex therapy, life therapy, everything. Boom, boom, boom.
Let's talk about that.
Therapy.
Let's dig deeper. Okay. I just started individual therapy.
You didn't just start.
Well,
she is a year in at this point.
A round of applause.
Thank you. And when I went to therapy, I was like, what am I going for? Right. And I had to really dig deep.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about that. When should people seek therapy? And build up on that. Like, what are some commonly asked questions about therapy that you're hearing from your clients?
So this is a tricky one, right? Because a lot of times people don't have insight into when they're unhappy. They might just be bitchy. Do we cuss here? Because sometimes I curse.
Not too much, but that's okay.
So they might just be grumpy or agitated, irritated, isolating themselves. So they don't always realize that they're unhappy. But unhappiness is a key indicator that you need therapy. And if you don't recognize that you're unhappy, you can ask yourself, am I satisfied? Am I pleased with the way my life is going? So those are like, that's the same side of the same coin. If more than one person is telling you that you need therapy or you should try coaching, you probably need to look into it, right? So that's the other one. Another way is if you are constantly having conflict with different people in your life, right? So everybody's not crazy. Everybody's not mean, right? So if you can't get along with people at work, if you can't get along with friends, if you can't get along with spouse, if you don't have a great relationship with your children or extended family, you probably need some therapy. And the last one I would say is if you feel like you're stuck, right? So if you feel like I want to make a move in some area and I can't do that, there's definitely a reason for you. That's definitely a reason for you to go to therapy. And of course, when I mentioned happiness as the first one, that's including crisis, right? So if you have death, divorce, loss of something significant in your life, whether it's job, family member, relocating and feeling isolated. So the loss of community and anchoring. So any loss is also a trigger for therapy.
Is therapy one of those things where you have to like admit you have a problem first? Or could somebody like go into therapy and you know, like AA and stuff like that? Like you have to be like, I'm going because I got this issue. Right. Like, can you be in therapy and not like really accept those things? Like, it's like I come in and I'm like, yeah, my mama told me I need to be up in therapy.
Right.
And then like, do you get people like that who really don't feel like there's anything wrong with them, or not necessarily that there's something wrong with them, but they don't feel like there's really an issue and they're kind of in denial about it or whatever?
Yeah, you can go to therapy even if you feel like you're not ready, especially if you're in a relationship or if someone who you value has pushed you to therapy, right? Because the goal is to move towards change. So sometimes people are at different phases or different stages of change. So they may be in pre-contemplation where they don't really think they have a big issue. They're not really ready to do something different, but they have to be there because it's mandated for some reason, right? Whether that's a social contract that you have with someone, mom, dad, partner, kids, work, you have to be there for that, right? Because, and it's not like, oh, if you're going to go to jail if it doesn't happen. Mandated means in the relationship, in order for you to maintain a relationship in some way, they've required this or else it's going to be chaos, right? But I will say it's similar to what they say about 401ks at work, right? When you go to work and you don't sign up for your 401k and you don't get those matching percentages, it's kind of like you're losing money. So you can be in therapy for months. And if you're not opening yourself up to insight, you're losing. You're not getting the benefit of being there. So if you're going because someone is asking you to go and you respect them and love them enough to make that move, open up your heart. Be courageously honest about what's going on, what's making you upset, what's making you stuck, what's making you difficult, what's making you feel unhappy, what's making your partner unhappy. Because sometimes when people are depressed, it's anger that they use instead of going down, right? So when you're hurt, you can either lash out at others or you get down on yourself, right? And so if you're being angry and you're sad and you're upset, you may be like, there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with everybody else. No, it's still an issue.
Everybody else.
Right. I have a question. So I'm gonna retract. I'm gonna tell you why I did go to therapy, because I was transitioning from being a mother of a teenager to an adult, right? So I wanted to make sure I didn't want that Black mother-daughter relationship to be tainted. Woo. I wanted to be a healthy transition and not trying to control her. But I have someone who I know personally that I feel like they need to go to counseling. What about when that person needs counseling and it's impacting you? Should you still recommendation? Yeah, like you recommend, but they don't believe they need it. But the way you're feeling is because they need the counseling to address their issues, because they're projecting it on you.
Like if they're a narcissist or they have these tendencies that are like negatively like coming in with this stuff and it's affecting you. Is it something that you can, because you can't force them to go.
You can't force them. So
you need the therapy for yourself to deal with it.
Gotta go. So there's two things. Number one, you can always make the recommendation, but you do it from a place of love, of gentleness, of kindness, with a good intention, and you don't do it during conflict. Okay. Right? That's when the person
therapy.
Right. Because usually that's not how it comes out during conflict. You know what? That's how it comes out, with some cuss words or some other stuff. Right. So no one can receive it that way. But the other thing is, if you were in therapy or if you've had therapy and are able to use therapeutic skills, the boundaries you set with that person who is in an unhealthy place should allow you to function in a better way. Meaning that there's a time when you realize, like, you know what, we can't be friends. We can't interact. We can't have the relationship that we used to have. It doesn't mean that we're not connected anymore, that I don't love you and that I won't be around you, but I can't put you in a position to continuously hurt me. So that may mean that there's shorter conversations, that there's less times at dinner. If it's a person who's that you're in a household with and you can't get around, because that's real too, right? I'm doing things, I'm minimizing my interaction with you and holding you accountable in a moment when you were disrespectful, mean, evil, and unkind. And not in a way that's like always, but just like, listen, this is not cool. I don't like the way you're making me feel. You're hurting me right now. and this is not cool, right? So it's up to you to save yourself, right? Because everybody, so this is the other thing about therapy. Once people go to therapy, everybody thinks they can diagnose other people.
Yes.
And everybody's like, well, I went to therapy, so I'm good. You need therapy. Nah. Because if you really are using the skills, you understand what your triggers are. You may be more empathetic to other people, but you are able to set boundaries. You curb your interaction and your reaction. So it works in tandem that way.
Yeah, wow. I like that because I think in the beginning, when I first started doing, I've done therapy off and on for some years, but like consistent therapy, for a time, is like you definitely get this thing where you're like, I can see everybody else's issues. And then it's kind of like as you go up in this thing and now it's more empathy. Like you said, like I'll be like, dang, like I can see that they're at a stage that they're not ready, for this kind of conversation or, dang, like, it's like you kind of feel like, all right, well, they need some time to get more mature or get more, whatever it is. So it is kind of like an empathy thing sometimes where you're like, well,
yes, you can see that the person is hurt. So therapy allows you not to internalize people being aggressive, condescending, mean, and nasty. But going to therapy does not allow you to diagnose, right? Because first of all, if you could diagnose people on site, therapists would be out of business, right? Because there are things that you are revealing 3 and 4 years into the therapy process that you haven't even connected the dots that impact you, right? So if you have ongoing issues. So it's always interesting when people who have been to therapy and they find out that I'm a therapist, then they want to start talking about other people's issues. Well, this person is this person. I don't know what that person is because one interaction with the person does not allow me to diagnose what your issues are because there are so many things that impact us, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the school we got into, the school we got rejected to, what our mother did, what our dad did, what the man did, what the girl did, what the best friend did, what the kid did, what Susie down the street said, what Keisha around the corner did. Like it's all of these things that impact us and show up in different ways. So it is arrogance that tells us that we can look at someone and know absolutely what's going on. Right? It's a process for them to figure out and think as things evolve, you will learn more. But the biggest thing you can do is offer empathy and then not engage with chaos. Right? And that's your biggest job. If you go to therapy and you want to say, I'm repping my therapist, don't engage in chaos.
Yes. I love it.
Represent them. That's how you know you've grown. Like, it's like, I can't do this. And this doesn't mean you're going to be perfect because sometimes you're going to trip. Sometimes you're going to be triggered, right? And so triggers are, things that remind us of an incident that caused trauma, discomfort, or crisis, and they ignite a certain kind of reaction for us, right? And so trauma. So for Black people specifically, I have to say, we don't categorize everything as trauma, right? So trauma is an incident that creates chaos in our lives and changes how we feel, right? So a lot of times we think trauma has to be, I saw somebody get shot. Oh, I saw, my mama died of cancer, but trauma can be so many different things. Trauma can look like you traumatized because you didn't get into your first pick school. Now, does that have the same reaction as, something else that may seem bigger, like someone passing away of cancer? No, it may not necessarily, but it can cause harm. It can cause you to have unhealthy coping mechanisms. It can cause stressors. And I think with Black people specifically, we don't diagnose enough things as traumatic, right?
It's like normalize it. Yeah.
We normalize discomfort, pain, sadness, and we say we need to keep pushing.
Yes.
Right? So it's extremely traumatic for us to watch on Instagram, people not just constantly getting shot by cops, but accosted by Karens and Kens.
Oh, I pass by them now. I can't look.
Right. So it's like, why? Because it's reminding us of an incident, whether it's real or vicarious, where we could be harmed, disrespected, or hurt. Right. So there's so many things that we experience that are traumatic that we have to be mindful of.
One of the things that I started doing that I'm still like, it's just a practice at this point is like I assess how I'm feeling with something. So there's times where I can see a video and I'll be like, okay, it's nothing. Like it's not a big deal necessarily. And then there's some days I'll be like, I can't do that today. Like, because I'm assessing where I'm at and I'm like, nope. And that's also with phone calls. And certain people's numbers that show up, I'll be like, nah.
Do today.
I'll be like, I'll call her later, or whatever, when I can sit down and deal, or whatever, because I already know the energy, that's coming from this person or whatever. So I think being able to really know where we're at on the scale, like, is a big piece of that too.
Saying that you understand energy is a big concept, right? Like, people don't understand what shifts their mood, right? And so energy isn't just what a person says, it's the feeling that is elicited by an experience. So that can be seeing someone's name in the phone. It can be watching not just the news, but even a movie or a television show, right? So there's certain content that I don't watch. Like, people, like, I don't like horror movies. I'm a chicken.
I don't do either.
Don't like drama. I don't like things that are sad, because the energy that comes from that shifts my mood. Like, I don't want to see people getting hurt. I want to laugh. I want to, find things that are silly, and I want my energy to be up. So it is so important for us to guard our energy. And when people say things like big mood, big energy, you think it's just, something that sounds catchy, but it's real.
It is real. Wow.
You need to be mindful of it. You need to guard that as much as you guard your wallet, right? Because
real, though.
matching your energy, someone who's bringing you down, things that are bringing you down, impact your ability to do everything else.
Something that Kim and I are embracing and rejecting, the concept of, this strong Black woman thing that, has just been there. And we have been like, I'm over it. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to feel like I don't want that to be expected of me. Like, and I have had that as an expectation for so long. Individually, like, I'm not even generalizing, just period. It's like, I've had people who did not consider my feelings because they're like, girl, you gonna be good. You all right. Cause we ain't gotta worry about you. I'm gonna worry about this person because they're more sensitive than you, or they're gonna need my help more. And I'll be like, I need help.
What happened to you? Raise your hand.
I'm like, I need help too. I get sad. I got feelings. They be like, you ain't got no feelings, girl. Because of how I express myself, or I don't express myself a certain way because I'm not like crying all the time or whatever. And I'll be like, that really, I remember when that happened to me, I just was like, that really hurt my feelings. And this is from a friend, that did not mean any harm saying it, but really it was kind of nonchalant, in the way that they were saying it. And I'm like, wait a minute, do people not think I got feelings? Like, I'm a human, And so, are you seeing that a lot? And you were getting, excited when I said that. But like, help us there? Like, is there somewhere that we need to go to?
Help us.
We need a strong Black woman anonymous meeting or something.
Therapy.
Yes.
Right. I think we need to change strong to dope, right? Because, we're of a certain age. So we know dope, but the kids still use it. The kids still use dope. But we understand the difference. Like, I can do cool things. I can do amazing things. But strong implies that I don't need help from anyone, including my sisters, right? And that becomes problematic. So the people who are, like you said, crumbling all the time are the people who get the most support. And they are the people who probably need it a little less because everybody's helping. Right. And then we also have to remember that tears are also a tool that people use to be manipulative. So I am mindful of people who cry like this, especially when there are people who do that when there's conflict, because that's a way to take away from the issue at hand and now go to soothing them and making them feel better. And then what do we do naturally? People are inclined to edit everything else that's said so it will not elicit this tearful response. But when people cry, I say, cry through it. Let's go. We're still talking. I'm not easing up.
Let me get a pillow so I can just relax. I'm in group therapy.
In real life, like, tears do not move me because it doesn't matter. Think about it like a kid, right? Like, if a kid is crying, it's not because they're always physically hurt, right? You cry because you got caught doing something. You cry because you're angry, right? You cry because you don't know what to say or do. Right. So people use tears as a way to get out of those types of uncomfortable situations. So when we think about us being strong, right, coming from a culture where even if we had men in our households, men in our community at large, men weren't there for us in the way that they were for other cultures. Right. And that in other cultures, and that's just what it is. It's not an attack on our men. And it's not because it was designed for that to happen. Mm-hmm. We have men, especially in the 70s, 80s, between the welfare laws, between drugs, between and incarceration and integration, which robbed our communities of businesses that allowed our men to be providers and create opportunities for their sons, their nephews, their daughters, their wives. All of this stuff impacted how our men see us and their presence in our lives. And then we have women who did what? You're with the kids regardless. In most cases, you got to make it work. Right. You have to make it work. So we understand what created the strong Black woman, archetype, right? The women who made it through regardless. And we know that our men want to be there for us and they love us and they appreciate us. And we know that Black men in other cultures are there in their households, right? And Black men who have experienced less trauma are present. Right. Right. But we need to be open to talking about our vulnerability more. Right. Yeah. Reminding men that we need them, being mindful of our words, whether we're in or out of their presence, because it creates an energy that we don't need them, that we don't trust them. Be mindful of how we talk to each other, women to women, about what we've done and what we've accomplished and how strong we are, because we are also sending messages to other people that we're good, that we won't need help. We just, we tell the end of the story and we don't tell the journey. Like I got this promotion. We don't want people to see us crying along the way. The nights we were uncertain, the loneliness that we have if we're not partnered, the loneliness we have if we have an unhealthy partner, right. So we have to be okay saying we have shells, but we have soft parts too. And we have to be comfortable believing in ourselves that when we show that vulnerable part, we're still going to be okay. And I always remind my, people in group therapy, my clients, my patients, whatever. If you have fallen and gotten up, it is a reminder that you can do anything. Yeah. Right. So we're so afraid of falling. I'm like, but you fell and got up. Right. Right. You still here. But did you die? But did you die? No. It's like, was it the worst? Or feeling like you're balancing all of these things and being afraid to let something go. If you fail at something, if it falls, you get back up. If you can't handle the job, the relationship, the kids, and you crumble, you will be put back together in most scenarios. So stop being so afraid that if I crumble, I can't put myself back together, because most of us have done it. It's just like we're crumbling in slow motion, like egg it, instead of just letting it happen. Yeah. So be okay with vulnerability. I like that you brought that's one of Kim's things about vulnerability. I think
I struggled with it a while because I'm an only child. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't really practice it, I think. My mother and my father, they were older. So I think we didn't really have real, true, vulnerable discussions. Now that I have my daughter, I'm very vulnerable with her. And I want to just unpack that, because one of the things that connected Aries and I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. I don't know if you are. She talked about the power of vulnerability, and I watched the Netflix and the TED Talk. For those who don't know what vulnerability is, can you just highlight and share what that is?
It's a bad word right now.
It really is.
I think that it's just the ability to go weak when you need it. It's the ability to share your tender parts, your underparts, to not always feel like you have to stand to be strong, right? Understanding that your weakness is still strength. And I think that you are the most strong when you are able to be vulnerable and know that you're still dope. You're still amazing.
Do you find that culturally we struggle there because of just what we've gone through? Because I know for me, that's a lot of reason why people say that. Because I'm like, well, if I am showing weakness, I'm going to get taken advantage of. I'm going to get abused. I'm going to get, these things are going to happen to me. So yes, there have been walls built, but finding out where can I open the door to the wall, what I'm saying? Or whatever, or take some of those bricks down in certain relationships. It's hard to figure out what's safe or
who's safe too.
Right. But, and I'm sorry I interrupt, but when we say weak, because we use the word strong is weak is the opposite, but that's not really what we mean. We're really just talking about being open and not assuming the worst about people. So I always tell people to be mindful of what you're thinking and what you're equating and what you mean. No, we're not asking you to go to work and just be like, oh, you know, or tell a man, you know, yes, you can have all of my money. Yes, I don't care who calls the house. Yes, we don't have to use a condom, even though I just mentioned, like, we're not talking about like ridiculous.
Okay.
What we're saying is you have to be open, right? And then if you're hurt, if you don't like what's going on in the scenario, you have to be able to say that you don't like it without beating your chest, and just say, talk truth to how you're feeling.
Because we'll use anger and interchangeably with really hurt. I know that when I got divorced, I remember my ex-husband said, he was like, you don't have no feelings. He said that to me. And I was like, well, I do have feelings. But what it was is how I was expressing them. So instead of being like, you know what, that hurt my feelings when this happened, I would be like, I don't appreciate you doing this. I'm coming with this anger. Anger thing. Instead of being like,
we want the prince, the king, the warrior, but it's like, we also want to be the warrior too. Like, so you have to create space to create the dynamic that you want in your relationship. And when you're hurt, I'm going to guess you didn't want him to see you cry. Why?
See, that comes from a previous time, like when I was a teenager. I literally had made a vow. I'm like, I ain't gonna cry no more because they don't do nothing. Like I had this whole, because I had my own traumas, you know, from growing up, right? So I had said, you know what, crying, because I used to cry all the time. Literally, I was like the crybaby in the family. They would be like, oh Lord, here she, you know, like, because my feelings get hurt. My mama yell at me, my feelings get hurt, and all that. And so then it was just so much stuff going on that I was like, this ain't helping nothing. What the crying gonna do? And I literally taught myself how to like,
as the strong versus weak, right? So crying all the time is different than crying when it's appropriate. Right. And what we do is we go from one extreme to the next. Right? Like, so it's like, you can cry when you're hurt. You shouldn't cry all the time. It's counterproductive. And it's usually a sign of something else going on, like, you know, maybe issues, you know, regulating your emotions or things like that. But you should cry when you're hurt.
I cry. I'm older. I'll be like, I can't even hold them in. I'll be like, whew.
And also saying from the I statement, like, people don't want to show vulnerability when someone has disappointed them, when they feel like, you know, even if I show it, I'm not going to get what I want. You know, the fear of disappointment, the fear of hurt, the embarrassment of this person is still not going to choose me, even if I show my vulnerability. But that is not for that person. It's for you.
Yeah.
Because those feelings are still there, right? And so you have to let them out. And once you do, it's like, you know, you deal with the disappointment, you deal with the hurt, you're dealing with it anyway. But now you've released that energy. And then you can move forward with whatever's going to be next. But holding it in, holding that sadness in, you know, talk about like why we're dealing with all of this sickness as Black women. Like, we don't even recognize when our body's in pain and stress anymore because we are always stressed.
Right. Oh,
you know, we're used to discomfort. We're used to not being happy. We're used to being tight. You know, and when, you know, this whole like Black travel movement and, you know, Black luxury and joy and all that, you know, again, I think some of it is extreme because, you know, there's so much to go into there, but there is something about like finding your joy. Right. And creating balance in your life and creating happiness and not always being on task to be a workhorse. Right. And so it is important for us to kind of have, you know, the pendulum go all the way in the other direction. So then we can be in a normal middle ground where it is part of my life to not suffer. Like, I literally had an ex and I who said, you know, you're a Black woman, you know, y'all made to suffer. And he was laughing and I was so upset. And so it became an ongoing joke for him. But I realized that it is a narrative that most people do not verbalize, but they are used to us being able to do regardless. And they recognize that it's suffering, working long hours, you know, not having people dote and take care of you, not having someone in the household with you to protect you. Right. Not like there's so many small things that happen when you are not partnered, married, and don't have men who are courting you in a certain way. Right. Or when you have issues at work and no one comes to your rescue. Like, if there's an issue at work, and we know for people who worked in multicultural environments, they know that when certain women cry or certain women make a complaint, you know, everything has to shift to accommodate that discomfort. That same thing doesn't happen for us. right? If you're small things like if you're carrying packages, right? Who's coming to help you with your load versus if someone else is doing that. So we have to be mindful of what we think we deserve in life. And it does start with us saying, like, we are vulnerable. Like, we need all the soft shit. Sorry, soft stuff. All of it. I want all of it. Carrying my bags. You gonna look at me cry. You gonna take these tears. You're gonna do.
I told Kim that exact thing. I said, I don't look. I'm gonna be like,
I'm in distress.
I'm in distress.
Help me, please.
Yeah.
I need all the help. Yes,
too, because your girlfriends don't always get it, right? Like, especially if you're in a group of friends who are all performing at a certain level. So it becomes like this indirect thing that we don't talk that much about our pain, about the challenges, especially if we're thinking, well, T got it together or Key is okay.
Like, what's wrong with me?
Like, this is just something I'm going through. So we have to start saying when ish is hard.
Yeah.
Right.
And talking about it collectively and allowing other people to show up for us.
Listen,
I love that.
See, let me tell you, this weekend, I said therapy is working in multiple ways. Friday, I was like, look, I need my back rubbed. I'm about to go get some reflexology.
Do it.
I'll pay for somebody to rub my back if I can't get somebody to rub my back. All right.
Hey.
Yesterday, I went and got an intensive pedicure. I'm crossing eyes. He's getting me in then later on, I think with my mother, the black mother relationship, we get in the car door is open and she's getting in. She's like, can you do this? I was like, can I put my mask on first? Let me close the door so no one hit. Oh, I'm sorry. She didn't think about that, but I brought awareness and set that boundary. I was like, you can do it. Like, why are you asking me to do it when you can do it? So I was like, good job, Kimberly. I'm so proud of you for the weekend. And that's the importance of like having the vulnerability to really share with her. Like, you're weighing on my shoulders now. It's too much. Right. So I'm going to be the damsel in distress.
Yeah. And using our tribe, some of my girlfriends, we met a couple weeks ago for brunch and we went around the table and I was like, okay, so I want to know what's going on with you? How's work? How's this? How's the relationship? And we all took turns kind of talking because they were even like, okay, like, because we talk and we be brunching and we're like, yeah, girl, and all this
deeper.
But I'm like, no, like, what's up? Like, what's really going on? And it was a good moment. And I feel like everybody really appreciated it. And I'm like, we need to start doing this more often to where we're hearing what's really going on in your world. And that helps a lot too.
And you do that. What happens if it's 5-10 girls, when people start talking about their issues, somebody's going to text someone later and be like, girl, let me tell you what's going on with me. Like, they're going to go deeper. Or, girl, I got something for you. Or, when this opportunity comes up or something, girl, I know you need this. So it deepens the support and it makes it more than just about, looking cute, being fly, which is important. Right. But also being happy and healthy. I wrote this article for ebony.com, healthiness over everything. Right. Because we talk about being happy. Happiness is fleeting. Right. Happiness. You'll be happy if you bought a bag. You'd be happy if you go on that trip, but you got to come home. You got to pay that bill. You have to, after brunch, you got to still live your life. So it's about creating healthiness. In all ways. That's why what Kim said about getting that back done a couple of years ago, I had a big health issue. It's very stressed at work, grinding. And one of my friends suggested I get a membership at a spa. And it's a Black-owned spa. It's called India. It's in Brooklyn, New York. If anyone's in there, y'all should definitely support. Share with your friends. Sophia there is dope. And she was like, there's a spa there. You can go and get a facial and a back rub and a body massage every month. And I was like, oh, I don't want to spend money on that. Like, what? She's like, but you can afford it. Again, this is the suffering mentality. It's 3 years and counting, right? And I since relocated and I found another Black-owned business to do it. It's called Indulgent Spa. It's in Bowie, Maryland, to do the same thing. That little bit of self-care, oh my gosh, the tension and stress that it relieves, skin popping, right? So that's confidence, right? Being mindful of what's going on with your body because your esthetician and your masseuse is going to tell you, what's going on because you're building a relationship. Like, oh, what's been, what? drinking more water, you're eating, like all of this stuff feeds into you. So healthiness, isn't just about mental therapy. It's not just the mental health therapy. It's not just about going to the doctor. It's about self-care rituals that you can afford. Right. Yeah. And that makes sense. So when people tell me they want to do self-care and they're like, we're going to brunch. I love brunch, but I'm like, mimosas ain't going to save your life. No. Right. Going to Zanzibar, that's not going to save your life. Those are part of life experiences. But what is going to save you? Things that promote healthiness.
Yeah.
Love it. Because during the pandemic, I started getting facials once a month. Mm-hmm. Game changer. Skin popping. I'm intentionally like, okay, I got to drink more water, and I'm telling you.
Cup right here.
Yes, water. Yes. And then when we went to Mexico, we spent a day like at the spa.
2 days. No, we did 2 days at the spa. We did everything they got up in there, I think. I mean, they were like, every piece of everything got scrubbed up and we laid up in there with the thing. Look, the cucumbers on our eyes. We were sitting there like, girl,
being served, taken care of.
But we made time for that and was very intentional because I'm like, I love a good spa. I'm a bathtub person. Like, that's just how I am anyways. But her daughter came, so she had the boys and they were gone doing whatever they were doing. And we just decompressed and took, it was just time away. And sometimes you just need to do whatever that is for you, whatever that thing is.
And I'm going to challenge that, well, not challenge it, but push that even more and say, I want people to think of those kinds of things more because a lot of times, and again, all Black people didn't grow up in the same situation. So I don't want to make it seem like everybody grew up the same way, but we know because of our history here, many of us have similar situations or are just 1 or 2 generations away from a similar situation. And because we didn't have wealth, we use food as a way to gift, celebrate, and have joy. So a lot of times, even if you go on vacation, you're going to do what? Pig out. Because this is the way to show that I've made it, to show that I'm happy, to show happiness, to treat the kids. But imagine if you start doing other things. Like, you know what? Like your daughter knows, Kim, like, we can do spa days, right? Your sons know that too, right? And men can do that. They can treat their future wives to those things. We can go on excursions. There's other things that promote healthiness besides just being somewhere and eating.
And we chose a resort that had like 80% organic food. We were getting the green juice. The boys started being like, I want some green juice.
Yeah. Exposing them to all of those things are so important. Because it now sets the standard for what life can offer. And, we have so many issues going on collectively as a community when it comes to health, right? So we have stressors that we're dealing with on more than any other level. And then we have crap food that culturally, are part of the things that we love. Like I love a lot of bad food. And it's not all like baked macaroni and cheese and ham hocks. It's also like Linden's cookies, which I grew up in Brooklyn eating that. And they are not high quality food, right? And no shade to Linden's because it's good and I love them. But when I started being in other environments and you're like, but this chocolate chip cookie has this and this chocolate chip cookie has that. This potato chip so you're not even eating the same junk food.
That's true.
Right? You're not having the same drinks, like if you grow up drinking, Arizona all the time and someone else grew up drinking a different type of iced tea, the things that we just naturally love and crave and make us feel good and at home, or we use to de-stress if you're pigging out on food, right? Are different. So reprogramming and putting that investment in what we eat and what we put in our bodies and exercising and creating different rituals when we are practicing self-care is so important.
I love it.
Gosh,
I love it. And you made a good point, like about my daughter, right? So she would go to the nail shop with me, but she was getting the basic. Well, she upgraded to the one that I had, and she was like, "I see, and now I understand why you had that." She was like, "Now I can't go and get a pedicure without those hot stones."
Right. And imagine what it's doing for your body, right? Like people say, oh, it's bougie. No, it's not. It's self-care. You're moving all this energy around. I don't know all the technical terms, but you're helping your blood flow. You're moving neurons and, neurotransmitters, all of that good stuff, right? And if you're doing hot stone massages, you're looking at like, oh, I'm the type of person that deserves this. So what else do I deserve? What water. I deserve to have this kind of business. I deserve to interact with this kind of people. I deserve this quality of makeup. I deserve this quality of food. Right. So having that healthiness lifestyle is super important.
So tell us about your business, Ready, Set, Grow, which I think is just super cute. Tell us about kind of your philosophy and how people can connect with you if they decide, because I know they're going to be like, I need to find her after this.
Please do. So Ready, Set, Grow is a mental health services business, but we also have other healing services as well, like acupuncture. I started it with two other girlfriends. Our lead is Dr. Dawn Thurman, who has been a dear friend of mine for almost 2 decades. It's crazy to think that, we've been around on this when you're of a certain age, right? You're like, I'm 20 years, right?
And don't look like it.
And we wanted to create a space for women of color, Black women, people of color, to know that they were going to have culturally competent healing services. Right. So we have another girlfriend who's a part of it. Her name is Latanya Waddell. She's an acupuncturist. So she's sticking you, helping that energy flow and doing other services along with that. So it's really a space for us to be our best selves. Right. So we ask, if you're ready, you're going to put in the work. We're going to help you. Let's get set and let's grow together. We offer different types of services, licensed therapists, healing services, life coaching. We have licensed therapists in Maryland, New York, and Washington, D.C. And we also have life coaching, and that can be for any state. So I like to clarify, because a lot of times when I do these types of things, people sign up on the site and then I'm like, wait. So if you are in New York State, Maryland, the state, or Washington, D.C., we have therapists who will accept your insurance. And you can have therapeutic services, mental health services. If you are in other places and you want to have life coaching, we can accept everyone. But of course, that is a regular payment. You won't be subsidized through your health insurance. You would have to do a super bill and get reimbursed.
Pay out of pocket.
Okay. Yeah, you pay out of pocket. What would they expect out of a life coaching session? What would that look like?
So life coaching is really when you want to be more focused on a goal, right? So it doesn't mean we can't deal with, something emotional, but if it's like, I want to work on, how to identify healthier relationships, or I want to work on how to build skills to get to this new job, right? So we identify a specific problem, we set goals, and we work towards it. I'm a solutions-based therapist, whether it's mental health therapy or life coaching. I'm not a person who, we ain't got time to be on the couch for 10 years, right? So my background is social work. So it's really about doing, right? So we identify the problem, we're going to talk things out, but we are going to create a treatment plan to help you get to the next level, to help you have coping skills, to help you get to your healthiness and happiness. And that's across the board.
I love this.
I do too.
And I think, it's starting to become like this little theme now, but having different people in your life for different things, just like you got different doctors, you got a dentist, you got an OBGYN, all that. We need to start setting up I think you mentioned about a wellness team, right? Wellness team, right? For different things. And it's okay to have someone that specializes in, this one area and somebody over here that does this. But that's an investment that we make in ourselves. So I love that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times people are like, oh, if I go to therapy, do I have to be in therapy forever? Right. So no, you're not in therapy forever. Usually, if you have a bigger crisis, you will see a therapist on a weekly basis, maybe even more than once a week while the crisis is kind of happening. And then you'll reduce the frequency that you see. It might go to, every 2 weeks, once a month, and then maybe even a quarterly checkup. So I don't like people to think they're like, oh my gosh, do I have to stay forever? Therapists work for you. We make recommendations, but it's up to you to decide, number one, if you want to follow them and put in the work, which is what we spoke to earlier, but also if it's a good fit, because people are like, oh, well, I go to therapists, I don't like it. It's like shopping, right? If you're looking for a car, you might go to a couple of dealerships before you find the car you want, but you're not like, I'm not going to drive. You still need a car. So if you need a therapist, if you haven't found someone who's a great fit, keep looking. I have to do the clock for that. Keep looking. If it works, it might just be you didn't find the right person. And I think it's important to be honest with your therapist as soon as possible. We kind of alluded to this earlier, Kim, like, oh, what if you're not ready? So you can come and just because you have to, because your husband or wife told you, or your mama is making you go. But until you open up, until you say what's really going on, until you're courageously honest about your issue, you're going to be stuck. And that's not the failure of your therapist. That's you failing yourself. Because you are meant to be happy, healthy, whole, and have all the good things that God and the ancestors want for you. And when we let things, whether it's trauma, whether it's not believing in ourselves because of whatever, whether it's disappointment, stop us, we are doing ourselves a disservice and limiting how we, manifest greatness in our lives. So push, keep pushing.
I love it.
I love this, and I'm so glad you were able to join us. And we're definitely gonna have you back. Okay, like there's no way that
we want to talk about relationships.
We're gonna have to bring her back for February. Yes, we need to have you back so we can talk all of that.
And we're the use case.
Yeah, because she set me straight yesterday, y'all. I was like saying something. She's like, Aries, we're gonna start speaking positivity in this area. I'm like, you know what? Let me get my mind right. See, I only could receive from certain people. Got to be able to talk to me like a certain way. So I was like, "Yep, you know what? See, I like this is why she needs to be.
This is who I needed."
Yeah, we're gonna have a good one or two therapists on every season at some point because we always like that's a big one. I think we need to talk a lot more about just mental health and different forms of therapy. So this has been really great. Can you tell people how to find you in all your different locations?
Yes. So if you are interested in therapy, life coaching, healing services, go to rsgtherapy.com. And that's where you'll find all of us. If you want to look at my occasional pictures and get some words of insight, you can go to Instagram. That's Tia Brown Talks.
Tia Brown Talks.
Tia Brown Talks. Yeah.
Awesome.
I love it.
Thank you,
Tia.
We
have really thoroughly enjoyed
it. Exciting.
I know. We can't wait to have you back.
I love this work. I'm so happy for you ladies, and I cannot wait to see what's next for this podcast experience, movement, all the good stuff.
I love it. We might have to sign up for some bold Black girl therapy.
For real, though.
My own group therapy session.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. We had such a good time, and you're going to be back, girls, so don't even worry about it.
Bye.
Bye.